Do you all have your scratch and sniff cards? Beautiful, nice. We'll get to this super soon. I promise you, we are less than 5 minutes away from smelling the first smell. I'm so sorry to make you wait. I really didn't anticipate when I first started doing this show just how eager people would be to smell the smells. That's really all people want from life. People don't care about stand-up. People don't want jokes or stories. All they want to do is sniff some smells and go the fuck home. Like, literally the first show I did of this at the Adelaide Fringe, I walked down and I go, hey, everybody, how's it going? And this guy in the second row just must have taken that as the cue. He was like, fuck yeah, time to smell, and just started getting into it. And I had to be like, whoa, 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 are you sniffing ahead right now? Which is words I never thought would leave my mouth in that order specifically. And he was like, oh, sorry. And I sort of explained to him, like, oh, look, man, it's like part of the show. I'll tell you when to do it. We'll all do it together. They come up at these like specific moments in the jokes and the stories and stuff. So, it'll be fun. But just wait a second, And he was like, oh, sorry. And then like 40 seconds passed and he clearly got bored of whatever the fuck else I was talking about. And he wanted to keep smelling, but he knew that I had an eye on him, so he would try to hide from my view. So I'd see a grown man lower himself down behind a seat. And then you'd just hear a gigantic... and he'd come back up. It's like he's either sniffing ahead or he's doing bumps of coke down there. Either way, his nostrils are full and he's having a nice time. So like I said, less than 5 minutes away from the first smell. We will get to it soon. But for now, let's talk a bit about sex, I reckon. This is nothing to do with the smells, I promise you. Nothing at all. Sex. You guys like it? Gross. No, I don't like it. That's why I bring it up. They call that being asexual. I don't know if you've ever heard of that as a thing. If you haven't, that's fine. I'd never really heard of it until a couple years ago. I was telling my friend, I was like, what's wrong with me? I don't really ever enjoy sex and I don't seek it out. And when it does happen, I can't get into it physically, mentally, emotionally. It just does nothing for me. What's wrong with me? And they were like, there's nothing wrong with you. You're probably just asexual. And I'd never heard that word before. So I sort of went and read about it, thought about it a bit. And asexual. Took me a long time to come to that realization, but to be fair, it takes me a long time to come to anything, so... A tense joke to start the show on, for sure. I don't feel the energy being sucked out of the room where people are like, oh, it's just started and it's very serious and emotional. I haven't even smelt anything yet. This is not... it's just a pun about jizz. Thank God. But, I talk about it here and there in comedy and stuff. Not a lot, but I have found that it's good to start by talking about it, I want you all to be aware of it, and I want you to know that because of that, it does mean that I need this. Like, this is sort of all that I have. Not to put too much pressure on your shoulders, but a lot of my emotional well-being rests with you, so big laughs on the special, please. And obviously, there's couples in tonight. I have nothing against it. Of course not. Maybe if you're with a partner, that's great. If you're not with a partner, maybe you're going home to a partner or you're going home to a crush to text or at least think about, The cops can't stop you from thinking about them, can they? Not bloody yet anyway, mate. Am I right? But not me. When I get home, it's just me and the notebook and the mirror. So let it fly, please. But I do want to talk about it at the start. And I was hesitant too. I was hesitant to ever talk about this stuff on stage or off. And I think largely I didn't want to admit it to myself. But also, as a comedian, it's a terrible decision, because you want to try to be relatable and talk about things that people find quite easy to connect with and understand. And inherently walking out and in less than 5 minutes being like, what's the deal with how terrible sex is? Quite unrelatable, you would have to admit, but... Definitely since I've sort of started talking about this, more people than I ever would have thought have been able to connect with it, which is a nice feeling. I was doing a cool show a couple months ago. There was about 50 people there, sorry to brag. And I would say 46 of them were great audience members, and 4 of them were absolute fucking dogs that I hated, right? It was just... sort of this table of like spiteful baby boomers at the very front who just stared at me angrily for a whole hour, didn't laugh at a single thing that I said, which is fine. It's to be expected in a way, A lot of the time baby boomers don't really get jokes. They get properties, Does anyone have a Nurofen, by the way? I've hurt my back going for that low-hanging fruit. So I was like, whatever, it's part of comedy, you deal with it, you wait, whatever. I put up with it, I leave the show, I'm walking out, I'm leaving the venue, going up these stairs, and one of them, this lady, comes chasing after me, and she goes, "Hey, come back, I want to talk to you." I'm like, oh God, what's going on? She goes, "Thank you so much for talking about this asexuality thing. I'd never heard of that before. I think I might be it." I was like, wow, that's kind of exciting, right? She goes, "Yeah, I'm in my mid-60s, I have a husband and 3 children. I'm like, interesting start. I feel like I got here after a few failed relationships and a lot of introspection, and you got here because you're sick of sucking off Tony. But that's okay. There are many doors through which you can enter the house of God. Welcome! But she really opened up. It was very sweet and unexpected. She goes, "No, I'm being serious. I've always thought for my whole life that my relationship to sex is different to anybody else that I've ever been brave enough to speak to about it. So it means a lot to see you up there saying stuff like that." She said, "Thank you." She gave me a hug. She said, "I love you." I was like, this is an intense but quite sweet interaction. And then her husband sort of appeared and was like, "Leave the comedian alone. You're annoying him. Leave him alone." And she went, "No, I'm telling him how much I hate sex." And he said, "I'm doing my best, Maureen." And that actually brings us to the first smell of the show. So go for it. Number 1, rip in. It should hopefully smell like popcorn. Something tragic that you should know about me is I am actually allergic to popcorn. I know. Don't like sex, can't eat popcorn. What is the point of even being here? But I do still love the smell of it. It doesn't stop me from truly loving the smell of popcorn, and that's why I wanted to open the show with it. It goes to show you don't have to connect with something all the way to still enjoy it. There'll be stuff I talk about in the next 35 minutes or so that you won't find very relatable, but I hope that you can still enjoy the show. How does that sound? So I guess I'm trying to care less about being relatable and stuff. I'm also trying to now be aware of, I guess, the stereotypes, the assumptions people might have about asexual people. People definitely straight away assume that asexuals are very lonely and miserable, you know? And I don't want people to leave this show thinking that asexuals are lonely and miserable. Like, I personally happen to be quite lonely and miserable, but it's nothing to do with the sexuality, I promise, you know? You do have to make an effort to look after yourself. I have this therapist, his name's Jeffrey. He's an American man. Pretty weird for sure, having a male American therapist. It does make it hard to respect him and the things he thinks. But he gives it a crack, you know. And his name's Jeffrey, spelled Geoff, and then the rest of it, which is an unbearable name for a therapist of all professions to have, because you're in there and you're trying so hard to be open and honest and vulnerable with these freaks, and I'm telling him, like, "Jeffrey, mate, I'm feeling an existential crisis. I feel no sense of purpose. I don't know why I'm here. I don't know why any of us are here. I don't know why I'm alive. I don't know who I'm here to help." And he's always like, "Come on, Luka, don't talk about yourself that way. I believe every human being serves an important purpose. And I believe every single thing that exists here with us on Earth is an important part of the beautiful symphony that makes up our lives." It's like, oh, really, Geoff? Is that what you think? What about the fucking O in the middle of your name, mate? Where does that sit in the symphony? I can't seem to hear the notes that it plays. Every time I type your email address, I'm reminded nothing means anything and we're alone in a cold universe. What are you talking about? He asked me quite earnestly once if I've ever had suicidal thoughts, and I told him the truth. I said yes. Sorry, yes, I have. Thought about cutting my wrist with a knife, actually, mate, but not quite yet. And I don't want people to think that I'm lonely either. Genuinely, I'm not lonely. I'm not. I have heaps and heaps of friends and a family that I love, you know. I'm doing fine. But I do think people don't really understand how asexuals might love. How do you express your love? Where do you put it? And I definitely worried about that within myself. I thought maybe I'm broken, maybe I'm wrong in some way. And I think it wasn't until a couple of years ago that I lived with 2 of my good friends, Hannah and Alex, that I think I learnt the full capacity of my ability to love. And I had a nice way that I'd remind myself of that. And it brings us to the second smell of the show. So go for it. Should hopefully smell like lavender. I will admit, it's not super accurate. It's a little bit Chemically, we can say that out loud. It's fine. It's closer to probably a lavender soap or a lavender essential oil, or as an audience member yelled out during the Melbourne Comedy Festival, it smells like the purple bin bag. Which is an undeniably perfect observation, right? But I still do love the smell of lavender. And Hannah and Alex and I, we had a huge lavender bush on the front fence of our house, and every single time that I came home to that house, I'd grab a bit of the lavender and I'd crush it in my fingers and I'd smell it and I'd think to myself, how lucky I am to know these people and to live in this house. And one night I did that, did my little lavender ritual, and it was quite late. It was about 1 a.m. I'm not ashamed to admit that I was quite drunk. So I was very, very into the idea of the lavender that night. Big handful of the shit. Let's go. What a lucky guy. I can't wait to get in. And I got to the door only to realise that I was locked out. I didn't know if I'd lost my keys at the pub or if I left the house without them, so I sort of sheepishly called my housemates, like, oh, I'm so sorry to wake you, but can you please let me in? I've locked myself out. And they said, oh, we're actually still on the way home. We're driving right now. We're only about 30 minutes away. Can you wait? It's like, yeah, I'm not breaking your window over this. No stress. I'll see you in 30 minutes. And I sat down and I looked at my phone and I smelt my lavender and I felt totally fine. I'm 30 years old. I like to imagine that I'm aging at a pretty regular rate, but sometimes you do have those moments, don't you, where you realise one part of your body is much closer to the grave than the rest of you. And for me, it is my bladder. Like, sometimes there's a piss in there and I'm aware of it, but it doesn't feel like a big issue. And then 30 seconds pass and it becomes a matter of life or death. It happened on that night. It became very sudden. I looked to the front yard. I just planted my tomatoes in the front yard. A lot of sodium in the urine. Bad for the tomatoes. Can't go there. Look out to the street. Quite well lit. All my neighbours know me. Can't go there. So I make the panic decision as it gets more and more urgent to sort of turn my back to the street and get very close to the front wall of my own house and just start going there, which is horrible, isn't it? I feel terrible about it. And I feel even worse when about 5 seconds in, I'm lit up from behind by a light. And oh Christ, my housemates have come home to see me peeing onto the wall of their bedroom. This is no way to treat the people who taught you your capacity to love, right? This is horrendous. And then I realised, though, that the light was red, and I thought, that's good. They must have decided to reverse into the car park. They probably haven't even seen me yet. I can probably wrap up this wretched business before they get out and before they see me. And then the red light turned blue. And back to red. And blue once more. And then a horrible sound. You know how the cops have 2 sirens? The one for serious stuff, car chases, etc., you know, with its mighty duration and its impressive tone. And then they got the little mini guy as well, the little whoop, you know, on. Yeah, they hit me with the fucking whoop! It sucks, man. It's the police equivalent of like, look, mate, we're not angry, we're just disappointed. And so I hear the whoop, and then I hear footsteps, and then I hear a man's voice say, excuse me, mate, what are you doing? And I'm sort of like, oh, Lord. He might be a police officer, but he's no detective, is he? And then something I have no real explanation for. Like I said, it was late and I was drunk. I think I was quite scared in that moment because all on instinct, without deciding to do this, my body just turned to face the voice. Immediately realised my mistake, didn't slow down for a second, kept turning all the way back to the wall. Full 360 piss pirouette. I'm now standing in the dead centre of a geometrically perfect circle of urine. He goes, mate, just finish against the wall, it can wait. It can wait. And I figure this is the last pee I'll ever take as a free man. This is 25 to life, at least. And I zip up and I turn around and I'm terrified. I don't know what to say. He doesn't even let me speak. He demands to see some ID. So I sort of shakily grab my wallet and fumble in my license and hand it over to him. And he looks at it and he reads it. And he is blown away to see that this is my address. He asked me to explain what's going on. I say with the housemates and the keys and the bladder, and I'm only 30 and I'm really sorry. He says, right, I could charge you with indecent exposure over this. Did you know that? I'm like, no. He says, I won't. I'm like, thank you. And then he says, outside of the turning around, it's not technically illegal to piss on your own house. But it is a weird move. And then he says a sentence that'll stick with me until I'm lucky enough to die. He says, look, mate, when your housemates get home, I want you to go inside, go to the bathroom, go to the mirror, look yourself in the eyes, and really ask, how the fuck did you get to this point in your life? An insane piece of police work, number one. And number two, it's like, dude, I do that every night anyway. Thank you very much. Do you want me to brush my toofies and put moisturiser on as well? It's called a nighttime routine, thank you. Let's do another smell. Go for it. Number 3, right in the middle there. It should hopefully smell like Palmer's Cocoa Butter Lip Balm. Where's my actual lip balm? There's no lies in this. This isn't showbiz nonsense, right? I love this lip balm. I'll tell you a story about it soon. This story takes place in Amsterdam, which is a great city. I've been lucky enough to visit there a few times. Obviously, we all know the big stereotype that Amsterdam has. They have the legal weed, which is good. I like that because I do like smoking weed, but I do get worried about getting in trouble for it and stuff. But because it's legal over there, I can happily get into it without any of that stress. And I've also travelled to places where weed is very, very illegal. I was once lucky enough to do a comedy show in Singapore where marijuana is punishable by death, which is not fucking worth it. Somebody asked me afterwards if I'd like to smoke a joint with them, and I was like, absolutely not. I'm not willing to die for my right to be hungry and anxious. Not for a second. And I think the first time that I ever smoked weed in Amsterdam, I had an asexual awakening, or the closest as I've ever had. I never was aware of those terms, but I think I was having the right thoughts. I was 19. I've been travelling by myself for about 3 months, and Amsterdam was my last stop before I flew home to Australia. And so I went there and I did the touristy things. I went to the Heineken Brewery and the Anne Frank House and the Van Gogh Museum. And then one night I smoked a little and I wandered around and I ended up looking at the red light district, which you might know is all the sex workers under the red lights behind the glass. It's a pretty crazy thing to wrap your eyes and mind around. And like I said, 19, alone for 3 months. I think I was definitely feeling lonely, but not in a horny way. Upcoming memoir of the same title coming soon. And I think a lot of other men of a similar age or situation might have thought about employing the services of the sex workers, which is totally fine. No judgment, go crazy, but not me. I remember distinctly walking around, looking at them all behind the glass, and the only thought that went through my head was, oh, wow, they should make a red light district, but for friends. Please nobody tell Geoff about that one, by the way. That is a secret even from Geoff, right? And it might be sad to imagine, but what a beautiful spectacle that would be. Imagine that. You're wandering around late night, Amsterdam, you see a little yellow tinge from an alleyway. Ooh, the yellow light district. Walk down there, just all these friendly looking fellas like, hello! Like, he looks polite, doesn't he? Some guy just seductively stroking an Xbox controller. Come in! Tempting. Ooh, twins. I wonder if I'm allowed to be friends with them at the same time. This was not that trip. This was a couple years after that. I returned to Amsterdam alone again. And one night I was at a bar, and as I was leaving, I was paying my tab. The lady was putting my card through, and I decided to put some of the Palmer's Cocoa Butter Lip Balm onto my lips. And she saw it, and she knew what it was. And she said, is that Palmer's Cocoa Butter Lip Balm? And I said, it is. And she said, that's the best balm in the world. I said, I know, right? And she said, check this out. And she got the attention of a group of about 10 people sitting at the end of the bar, and she goes, show them what you've got. Okay, so I sort of tentatively held it up like that, not knowing what to expect. And in unison, they sort of squinted to see what it was. And once they noticed it, they all went like this. Way! I've never seen anything like it in my pathetic little life, right? They were so excited. It was unbelievable. And normally I'm a bit shy with new people, but I felt quite emboldened by the balm connection. I thought, I'm going to make some new friends this evening. Let's go. And I went and chatted to them about the balm, and they were so friendly. They were so sweet. They were so nice to me. All I did was prove to them that I use the same balm that they also use. And in exchange, they gave me 6 free drinks and 2 lines of cocaine. There is nobody nicer than the Dutch. And so we got into some very fast-paced and meaningless discussions, and eventually I started asking them some local tips. I'm a bit obsessed with food, so I was like, tell me about all the best food in Amsterdam. And this one guy in particular became very animated, and he tells me, dude, the best sandwich I've ever had in my life, the best sandwich in all of Amsterdam, the best sandwich in all of the Netherlands, possibly the best sandwich in all of Europe is the chicken salad sandwich at a shop called Verblumje. He goes, it's pretty far out of the way. You got to get a ferry for 45 minutes, and then you got to walk for 25 more minutes through an industrial area. You'll go past all these workshops and warehouses. You'll think you're lost. You're not lost. You're on the way to Verblumje. And so the next day, I'm like, I have to have this sandwich, right? I simply must. This dude is fighting Poseidon. He's taming the seas to have this chicken sally, right? I got to have this thing. And so I get the ferry, 45 minutes, and I walk through this industrial area, 20 minutes past all these workshops, warehouses. I do think I'm lost, but I remember I'm not lost. I'm on the way to Verblumje. Let's go. And I get through and I get to the shop for Verblumje and I go in there and I'm so excited. And I order the chicken salad sandwich and they make it and I unwrap it and I bite into it and oh my God, you guys, the sandwich was dog shit. One of the worst mouthfuls of food I've had in my life, I would say. It was in that moment I realised this is the true price of legal weed, isn't it? You smoke the right strain on the right day and any old piece of trash is worth a 45-minute boat ride. Fuck off. So I feel so let down by the sandwich and the recommendation. I think I've come all this way. I need to find something else to do. So I sort of wander around looking for anything else to look at. And it's all shut. It's just all these workshops, warehouses, nothing interesting, nothing cool. Until eventually I spy an open door and beyond the door, what looks like sort of a vintage furniture shop. I think, oh yeah, I can go look at that. And I wander in and I look and there's some cool old couches and chairs and tables and there's art and there's books about art. And I'm just about ready to leave when this guy comes running up to me and he goes, hey, how the fuck did you get in here? And I point at what was once an open door and it's now a closed door. And I said, that used to never be like that, I swear to you. I don't know when it changed. It changed, man. He goes, you need to leave right now. This is a storage warehouse. You are not allowed to be here. I go, I'm so sorry, man. I'm leaving. I'm really sorry, dude. I'm sorry. And then he sort of hears my accent for the first time. He goes, wait, what's that accent? Where are you from? I go, I'm from Australia. He goes, are you a tourist? I'm like, yeah. He goes, what are you even doing here? No tourists ever come to this part of town. I go, I came to get a sandwich at this shop called Verblumje. I'm really sorry, man. I'll get out of here. I'm really sorry. He goes, Verblumje? The sandwiches there are fucking shit. I say, don't I know it, brother? And he sort of calms down a bit, and how I read his next move is he's putting a guilt trip on me, because what he tells me is that everything we're surrounded by, it is actually for sale, but they sell it on the website, and this is where they sort of ship it and store it, and if I do want to buy anything, I'm welcome to buy it from the website and just walk out with it that day. And so I feel a bit obliged, of course. I've broken into this guy's work. I should buy something so he doesn't end my life, right? And so I sort of think, how can I take a chair or a couch? I got to get the train in 2 days. What am I going to do? But then I remember this bookshelf full of books about art, and I'm like, great, I can take a book with me for sure. And so I go there and I look, and there's a few books about, you know, like artists that I've heard of, big names, Van Gogh, Picasso, but then there's like 50 books dedicated to a name that I'd never heard in my life, Leger, Leger. I thought, that's weird, isn't it, that he's got more books about him, and I've never heard of him, than people that I consider to be very famous. I guess maybe he's just very famous in the Netherlands or something like that. You know how that happens? Some artists catch on in one country without ever really succeeding anywhere else in the world. Sort of like Pink in Australia, you know. I figure this Leger character must be the Pink of the Netherlands, you know. People are sort of like, his paintings are alright, but have you seen the motherfucker on a trapeze, right? It's next level. So I sort of don't even really look. I just grab one and I take it up and I find it on the website and I show the guy. I go, dude, I just bought this. Thank you so much. I'm leaving right now. But he's not happy with my spend. He goes, that's it. That's all you're buying today. I go, oh, what else have you got? He goes, Leger, the book. Do you like him? Do you like that artist? I go, yeah, man, I love him. I'm obsessed. He's my favourite artist. I lie to his stupid Dutch face, right? He says, well, we've got a whole bunch of Leger prints. Would you like one? And he points to some prints behind him. I go, absolutely, that one, I'll take it. And he puts it in a tube and I take it with me and I take it all the way home and now it hangs on my lounge room wall. There it is. Yeah, it's yes. You may well have noticed that my feet are blurred out in that picture. I'm so sorry to deprive you of my piggies, but it's just that there is a very small but very intense and dedicated group of men on the internet who really want to see my feet, and I refuse to let them win, to be honest. even in the special. I have that on my wall, and as I get the ferry back, I read some of the book, and this chapter catches my eye, talking about Leger and how, although he was very sort of famous and respected and original and, beloved artist in his time, despite all this, he never really married. He never had a partner, never had a family, anything like this. And I think, finally, an artist I can relate to. This is what it's all about. And now that book's on my shelf, and that's on my wall, and anytime I see either of them, I just sort of smile to myself about how strange it is that there's this artist out there who really changed my life in a way. And I never had any idea that he existed. And I would have gone the rest of my life without ever knowing that he existed, if not for Palmer's Cocoa Butter Lip Balm. It truly is the best balm in the world. And sort of the few days after that story all happened is where the idea for this smell show really all started, because I'd sort of walk around and the smell would waft up off my lip into my nostrils, and I'd remember the people in the bar and the terrible sandwich and the angry man in the warehouse. And I think that's interesting, isn't it? That so many memories can come from one tiny little smell that you smell every day, And it was at a time when I was trying to spend less time on my phone. I think, like a lot of people, I've put in a big effort to spend less time on my phone, and I started the same way a lot of people do, by deleting the big time suck apps. You get rid of your Twitter, your TikTok, your Instagram, and I did all that, and embarrassingly, my screen time did not go down. I just transferred. I became equally addicted to literally like the clock app and the weather app. Just wandering around like, guys, it's 21 degrees in Budapest right now. It's quite warm for this time of year, if you don't know. So I decided, instead of going on that, anytime I'm tempted to go on my phone, I will instead go to the Notes app, and I will write down the last thing that I can remember smelling, and I'll write down some sort of 2 or 3 sentence story or memory or meaning that it has to me. And the Palmer's Cocoa Butter Lip Balm was the first one that I put in there, and I did that. I started recording all these smells, sort of journaling in that way, and I found it very useful. It was good. It got me off my phone. It was really nice, which was cool, because I always felt so embarrassed about the phone addiction. I think embarrassment is the right word for me to choose, right? It is embarrassing. It is embarrassing to be that addicted to something that doesn't even feel good. You know what I mean? At least if you're an alcoholic, you might get to have a bit of fun along the way, or if you do heroin, you get to die at some point. What a treat. But with the phone, you're just like, oh my God, that was the worst, most confusing, miserable, and hopeless 25 minutes of my life. Let's do it again immediately. Let's go. And so it helped me get off. I left this trip with all these memories and these meanings and all these smells, and I came back to Australia, and about a week after that, I jumped onto a session with Geoff, and he asked me about my trip, and I told him very excitedly about my smells, and he was concerned, mostly. And then he talked about some other stuff, and then eventually he asked me what he always asked me, which is, have you had any suicidal thoughts recently? And I thought about it, and for the first time in so long, the answer was no, which is definitely rare for me. That is so rare. Like, that idea has just lived permanently in my head for as far back as I can remember. Sometimes, most of the time, lucky for me, quite far away and distant and fuzzy and out of focus, but sometimes as well, very close and sharp and urgent, and you start to think about when and how, and when you think like that, lucky for me, I've always been able to talk to my friends and family and Geoff, and I can push it a little further away, right? And so, for the first time ever, Geoff decides he should interrogate me on why I think that is. And if you've ever thought along those lines, you'll know there's never a reason why. We could all come up with a reason why. We've all had a litany of terrible shit happen to us. The world sucks. There's no denying it. And I think I could have told him that as an asexual, it's hard to envision a future for yourself, because the future that most other people get to plan has a partner, somebody else there, have this future that you build together. And not me, and I'm so happy with it, but it's just hard to think of what to do. The world is not made for people who are happy to be alone. Even outside of being asexual, people who are happy to spend their lives by themselves, the world is not for us, We did get a huge win a couple of years ago, the loner community. I don't know if you all would have even paid much attention to this, but this was huge for us. Do you guys remember when they very first introduced the little mini loaf of bread at the supermarket? That was massive for us lonely fucks. No more mold, no more tears. Thank you so much. To you, it might be mini, but to us, it's gigantic. So, Could have told him that. Could have told him that, I don't know, I think me and pretty much everyone I know of my rough age group finds it very hard to feel positive about themselves or the world in any way. It's so hard to ever feel like you're contributing well. I think we're all so hyper aware now, aren't we, that just by living and breathing for another day, you're draining the world of its resources and contributing to this endless income inequality. And it's just hard. Sometimes you think you do something good. I recently bought new shoes, right? And I felt so good about myself because these are the Nike Air Max 95s, part of the new Nike Towards Zero range, which means that they're 100% vegan and they're made out of 100% recycled materials. It's good. I felt good. I'm sure the children that made them are so proud. So I sort of thought about all that, and I could have told him that, and I thought about it longer, and eventually I just said, look, man, I think just as far back as I can remember, I've just always felt like the O in the middle of your name. I don't know who I'm here to help. And I think I used to have an easier time with that. We'll get to a story about why soon, but let's smell again. Number 4, go for it. Should smell like oranges. I love the smell of oranges. I'll tell you where it fits into the story soon. But I think I used to have an easier time. Because I grew up in the country, right? Surrounded by very friendly, nice people. I grew up in Echuca. If you don't know Echuca, it's about 3 hours directly north of Melbourne. It's on the border with New South Wales. Echuca is a Yorta Yorta word that means meeting of the waters. There are 3 different rivers there. I grew up spending a lot of time outside, surrounded by people who are very friendly, nice, wholesome, fucking racist as hell, but they were always quite nice to me, which is a bit of good luck on my part, I suppose. Isn't it? But when I first moved to Melbourne, I really missed that sense of community, and I tied that to the idea of being a good person. Like, I missed that friendly small town vibe, and I definitely felt isolated. And something that happened to me a couple of times in the months before I left Echuca is random people just pulled over and gave me a lift because I was walking in the same direction that they were driving. It was this really nice community building thing. I didn't know them, but we sort of had people in common. It was really sweet, right? And so when I first moved, I thought, you know what? I'm going to transfer some of that small town energy to the back streets of Brunswick. And you can try. You can try so hard. You can pull over, say to a person, hello, where do you live? I'd like to drive you home. You can say exactly that. What they're going to hear? Hey, do you want your family to be sad? Have you always wanted to be in the newspaper? This is the story of what happened. I'd lived in Melbourne only a couple months and I felt lonely and I missed that sense of community, and I was driving home on Bell Street, long straight street in the north. It was about 11 o'clock and it was a little bit windy and cold, and I saw this old woman walking by herself by the side of the road pushing a little canvas shopping trolley thing. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to be a good person. I'm going to connect with my community. I'm going to give her a lift. And so I pull over and I get out and I go, hello, where do you live? I'd like to drive you home. And I've never understood more instantly that a person did not speak English, right? Just straight away I knew she had not understood a word I'd said, but instead of thinking, that's fine, she'll get home, I'll get home, my brain clicked into some sort of panic state where all I needed was to help her and be that good person and make some sort of impact on the world around me. And so I just started pointing at my car and saying, get in the car. Get in the car? Do you want to get in the car? And then she got in the car. Immediately, I wanted to take it all back. I was like, actually, I hate you. I don't like you at all. I hope you die out here on the street. Looking back, she kind of paid me the ultimate compliment, right? Like, what more can you say about a person's friendly face and generally kind demeanour than to look at a man, especially, who's about 50 years your junior and go, well, if it comes down to it, I could fucking take this cunt. To be deemed harmless as a man is huge because it puts you in stark opposition to your peers who are just brimming with harm, right? So she gets in, she leaves her little canvas shopping trolley thing. I think, that's okay, that's my responsibility, I'll take care of it. And I go to pick it up and put it in the boot. And as I lift it, I think I was expecting it to be heavy, full of groceries, but I notice it's almost empty. It feels like there's only one item shaking around in there. And so I decide to investigate. I lift the flap and I smell that bright, zesty, summery smell of the oranges before I can even see them. And I look further and there it is, a bag just like that, 6 oranges in the bottom. And I sort of stare at them for a while, wondering what the hell I'm doing. And then I realize she's been watching me and I sense tension between me and the woman. And I decided to make a joke to break that tension, and the only joke that my brain was capable of in its state was a bit of good old-fashioned slapstick. So I decided to pick up the trolley and just lift it above my head a few times. And I go, it's just so much lighter than I thought. I thought it was going to be really heavy full of groceries, but it's light. She's not laughing, but it's fine because I am. What am I thinking? She doesn't understand the words coming out of my mouth. I might as well be saying, look at how strong I am. Put that in the boot. That's where you'll go later. So I shut it into the boot and I'm like, what's wrong with you? This is going terribly. You're a maniac. And I get back in this car and I look at her and she is so calm and I'm sweaty and panicked and she is so chill. It sort of instills in me a sense of calm. I figure she must have wordlessly kind of understood what's happening here. I reckon we can figure this out. So I just set off. We drive straight, Bell Street, long straight road for about 4 or 5 minutes before I decide to try some other phrases. I go, so where is your house? Where is your home? Where are we going? Where should I take you? Where should I drive you? Where is your bed? Where does your family sleep? And then I yearn for the silence, and so I return to it. For about 2 or 3 minutes this time before I realise probably what you've already thought of, that all I need to do is figure out where she's from so that I can use Google Translate on my phone to communicate with her that way. Very simple, elegant solution, but my brain was not at its best. It's uncomfortable. I have to turn to her and say, hello, sorry, it's me from before. Sorry about this. Are you from China? And it was the first time she really responded to me in any way. She understood that word. And she goes, no. I go, are you from Japan? And she goes, no. I go, are you from Korea? And she goes, no. I go, from Vietnam? And she lights up. Big smile, big thumbs up. And she goes, Vietnam. And I go, fuck yeah, Vietnam. What don't they have? Banh mi, pho, this woman, they've got it all going on. What a country. So I pull over and I get on my phone, English to Vietnamese, where do you live? I'll drive you home, show her the screen, she points at the screen, big thumbs up, she understands. I give her a thumbs up, and then I start pointing around as though to say, you can give me directions like this. She understands, she starts pointing around, we give each other another thumbs up, and then she converts her thumbs up into the first direction of the lift by going like this. Pardon moi? We're further from your house than when we started. All right. And so I turn around and I'm pointing down all the streets. I'm like, is it down that one? Down there? Down there? Which corner should I take? And she just keeps pointing ahead. I'm like, are you sure? Is it down there? Down there? She points ahead. I'm like, are you sure? She's like, I get it. I'll show her the screen again. She's like, yeah. She keeps pointing ahead until eventually she points down and goes like that. Like, stop. And so I stop. And we are like 25 metres from where I picked her up. And then easily the most bonkers part of the story, she just gets out of the car and goes into a house. Like fucking nothing ever happened! Like she wasn't just the main character in a story that'll haunt me for the rest of my days. What does she think took place? Who does she think I am? What does she tell her family when she goes inside? She's like, oh, you'll never guess. The old boomerang kidnapper nearly got me. And I watch her sort of toddle up this twisting garden path towards the door. And I remember distinctly how calm she was for the entire duration, how chill she was the whole time. Even when we immediately set off and straight away drove past her house, she was unfazed. She didn't even look. She did not glimpse nor glance. She just embraced the future. I think she loved it. I think she was like, fuck yeah. My pale son here to take me away to my new life. And she gets all the way to the door and she turns and she waves at me like that. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? She goes inside and I take a moment, I turn around, I drive back towards my house and I feel out of my mind. I feel off my head. I've never felt more isolated and confused and alone. For the first time ever, I'm like, fuck Melbourne, man. I'm going back to Echuca. I do not understand the people here. I do not understand what's going on. I don't understand the big city mindset. This is just not working out. I'm leaving. I'm done with this place. I don't get it. And I get all the way home before I realise that I still have her trolley. Not proud to say this, but I just kept it, guys. What better way to embrace your new big city mindset than to go, fuck you, I'm having that, actually. I ate the oranges, yum yum. Just a reminder how hard it is. You want to really pour in a lot of effort, try to connect to your community, go really out of your way to be a good person, and in the end, you end up kidnapping and robbing an old woman, right? I've one more smell to get to. It'll come in the middle of this next story. Thank you so much for being here. I do this as a job, which is just a dream come true. I also have a job on the radio, which I'm extremely lucky to have. And another job that I used to have until a couple of months ago was I used to run and book and operate the comedy aspect of a big music festival called Splendor in the Grass. I feel like some of you have heard the news that Splendor has been cancelled. I don't know if it'll ever come back. To me personally, I can't imagine that happening, but you never know. So I guess I just don't have that job anymore, right? And I know that sounds like a cool, fun job, comedy at the cool young person music festival in Byron Bay. But the reality is you walk out on stage, you're in this big tent and you look at the crowd. It's just a few dozen teenagers who are just more ketamine than human at that point. You're like, hey guys, how's it going? They're like, bro, this DJ fucking sucks. But outside of that, it's a nice weekend to sort of take drugs and watch bands with your friends. It's nice, right? The first year that I ever did that job was in 2022. I don't know if you remember that year, but Splendor was also in the news because of the weather. There was torrential rain. It was super wet, super muddy. They almost ended up cancelling the whole festival. They did end up cancelling the first 2 days of the festival. Obviously, I knew about the rain going in, and so I decided, you know what? I'm going to be the best employee and best friend and best person that I can be. I'm going to drive to Splendor this year so that I can pack my car with a whole bunch of extra wet weather gear so that when the rain does come, I can help my friends out. My parents are very into camping, so I asked them for all their extra tents and tarps and gumboots and raincoats, and I packed my car and I set off in this 18-hour drive to get to Byron Bay. I was just outside Sydney, which is roughly the halfway point of the festival, when my friend Michael, who was also doing comedy at the festival that year, called me. He goes, hey, are you driving to Splendor this year? And I go, I am. He goes, that's crazy that you're doing that, but it's great for me. Can you please do me a huge favour? And I'm desperate to be liked, so I was like, absolutely, what'll it be? And he said, well, I was planning to propose to my girlfriend at the festival this weekend, but I've just flown from Sydney to Tasmania. I'm doing a show in Tassie tonight, and then I'm flying direct from Tassie to Byron, where the festival is, and I have forgotten the engagement ring. It is in my bedside table at my girlfriend and I's apartment in inner city Sydney. If we come up with some sort of plan, would you be able to swing by there, collect it for me, and bring it to the festival? I was like, okay, man, what's the plan? He goes, I'll think of something. I'll call you back. 10 minutes later, he calls me back. He goes, hey, dude, I just got off the phone to my girlfriend. I've told her that you work for the festival and you have to come to our apartment to collect a USB stick, which is integral to my performance at the festival. You guys like that plan? You seem quite skeptical and dubious. This is understandable. I think, in Michael's defense, it's a wonderful plan. I think it's a great plan. I think it's a perfect plan if the year was 2008. That shit would pop off in 08. I'd turn up and be like, hello, I'm here for the USB stick. She'd be like, they're so important. It's exactly how we store and transfer files. Here you go. Thank you so much. What else is going on? Have you seen The Dark Knight? It's in cinemas. Oh, you better believe I've seen it. What a movie. And how about that Kanye West latest album, 808s and Heartbreaks? What an album. What an artist. He'd have to do a lot to fuck up his legacy. He sure would. Thank you so much. I'll see you at the festival. Have a great day. See you there. I'll be the one wearing the Native American headdress. But there will be so many. How will I find you? Second half of the plan, which genuinely I do think is good because it minimises contact between me and Michael's partner, who I'd never met before that day, is that when I get there, I'll say a quick hello to her. She knows what I'm there to do. I'll then jump on the phone to Michael, and over the phone, he will walk me through a fake search of the apartment. He will first lead me to the computer desk where the ring obviously isn't, but where the actual USB stick is. I can get that, slip it into my back pocket. He'll lead me to a couple of other fake decoy locations. And then finally, he will lead me to the bedside table where the ring is. I can get that, put that into my back pocket, take the USB stick out, show it to his partner. Thank you so much. Have a great day. See you at the festival. Not that bad of a plan, right? I continue to drive. I start to try to sort of plan the aspects of the plan that I can. I script what I'm going to say to his partner when I first get there and what I'm going to say first things to Michael over the phone. But because of this, I was planning to go all the way around Western Sydney, not even go near the city. But I have to go all the way in. I have to go into the inner suburbs and I end up hitting traffic. I time it poorly. I'm in standstill traffic. My car doesn't move for 35 minutes. I'm stuck. And my old man bladder strikes again. It becomes very sudden and very urgent. I'm trying to plug into Google Maps, public toilets along the way. Nothing's coming up. It becomes really bad. I look around. What am I going to do? I make the panic decision to grab an empty Coke Zero bottle and just go into that as I'm sitting in traffic. I've never done anything like that before. I'm worried. Is somebody going to see me? Am I going to get in trouble? I catch my reflection in the mirror. I think, how the fuck did you get to this point in your life? And I fill it. I more than fill it. I overfill it. A little bit of it spills out of the top, unfortunately, and it sort of sinks into like the cushioning in the front seat of the car. It stinks. It starts to fill the whole car with its stench. That's why the final smell is piss. No, imagine it was piss. It's so gross, and I sort of screw the lid back on. It's filling my head with its fumes. I'm getting a bit of a headache, and eventually I get out of traffic and I drive onto Michael's and I park at the front of his house. And in that exact moment, he calls me. I go, dude, this is perfect timing. I've just parked at your house. Let's do part 2 of the plan right now. He goes, I'm so sorry. This is the worst timing ever. I'm right about to walk on stage for this gig I'm doing in Tasmania tonight. I am uncontactable for the next 90 minutes. You'll just have to go in there and figure it out. Try so hard to be good and it doesn't work out. My first thought, not a good person thought, I thought, you know what? I'm going to go in there, tell Michael's partner that he has been cheating on her. Let's tear this thing apart before it even gets to the engagement. Don't do that. I buzz. She lets me up. I walk down their hallway for what feels like years. The corridor extends like The Shining. I reach the door. I knock. She answers. She's so friendly. She's so sweet. She goes, oh, you must be Luka. You work for the festival? I'm like, yeah, that's me. She goes, oh, you're here to get a USB stick? Is that right? I'm like, yeah, the USB stick. Sorry about this. She goes, did Michael tell you where it is? He didn't mention to me where we might look for it. I go, oh, yeah. He told me that it's probably either in like the computer desk or the bedside table, but please don't worry about it. Like, don't let me bother you. Don't let me interrupt your day. I'll find it. Please don't worry about it. It's all good. She goes, no, that's okay. Why don't you check the computer desk? And I'll check the bedside table. So I watch her disappear into the bedroom. And I watch the plan disappear with her. And I go sheepishly to the computer desk and I get this stupid fucking USB stick into my pocket just in case. And I sort of stand and just watch the door for what feels like an eternity. And eventually she emerges and I go, did you find anything in there? She goes, I didn't find any USB stick. What about you? I go, oh, no, me either. Do you think I could please have a look? She says, I just looked in there. There is no USB stick in that bedside table. I say, I feel like I might be able to find one. She says something that's so brave to say to somebody you don't know. She says, look, Luka, this is a bit uncomfortable. We don't know each other, but I kind of don't want you to look in the bedside table. It's my bedside table. There is some sex stuff in there. I say, that's okay. Please let me look. He reluctantly lets me past. I feel horrible. I get in there. I get to the bedside table. I open it. Michael had not mentioned any sex stuff. I open it up and it is fucking overflowing with sex stuff. An unbelievable amount of sex paraphernalia. There's all these different sex toys and all these different lubes. There's also, I don't know what this is about, an X-Men comic book. I know why I don't have the most typical relationship to sex, but is that usually a part of it? It's a good time to show you who this is. You might actually know him. There he is. His name's Michael Hing. That's him hosting The Project on Channel 10. He does a lot of stuff on TV. You might have also heard him on Triple J on radio. You might have even seen Michael in a stand-up comedy special, which was released last year, where he tells his side of this exact story. He tells this whole thing from his perspective and his partner's perspective, and I just think it's important for me to tell my side so that people know that his is full of lies. And I don't want to shit on him or make fun of him. He's a great dude. He's done a lot for me in my life. I just think you deserve to know, if you ever see him on your stand-up stage or hear him on your radio or see him on your television, just know that Michael Hing jacks off to the X-Men. I'm sort of in there and I try not to touch them, and I like push the sex toys out of the way and do the same with the lubes, and I can't help but notice it's a lot. I'm pushing a lot of lubes out of the way. There's like 7 or 8, like that's a lot. Like what's going, like how dry is Michael Hing's asshole, you know? I sort of do away with Wolverine and the lads, and there's this little wooden box, just how he described, and I open it quickly and there's a beautiful ring inside, and I shut it and I put it into my back pocket and I take the USB stick out and I walk out of the bedroom and I show it to his partner. I go, I found the USB stick. She cannot believe her fucking eyes, right? I'm so sorry about this. I'll see you at the festival. Have a great day. And I run out of there feeling awful. I've lied to this woman. I've manipulated her. I've invaded her privacy very severely. And I run all the way back to the car feeling horrible. And I jump in the front seat and I get the ring out and I look at it and I hold it in my hand and I realise I've actually done something good here. I've done it, haven't I? I've got the ring. I can give this to Michael. He can propose. She can say yes. They'll be engaged. They'll be married. They'll have a long lifetime full of X-Men themed sex ahead of them. It's going to be fine. And I close my hand and I close my eyes. And I let out a sigh of relief, and I breathe back in, and I've never been happier to inhale the smell of piss. No, you may well notice there's actually no scent on that. I'm sorry to say. If you do scratch it and sniff it and it does smell like piss, you've done that somehow. It's not for lack of trying, and it's not because I don't want to like offend your senses or anything like that. I actually think that would be the perfect ending to this show. Right as it feels like I'm maybe trying to make some point about all these smells, and as trivial as they may seem, I've found a way to make them seem big and meaningful and to tie them to these things that have meant a lot to me, right? Right as it feels like that is what I'm trying to say, to just go, nah, it's all piss, guys, fuck off. That was a dream ending to a show, in my opinion. And I did try. I tried so hard to get the piss, scratch, and sniff stickers. So this is sort of how I got these things made. When I first started thinking about it, I was like, you know what? I'm going to make them myself. And I went online and I learned a few different methods of making your own scratch and sniff stickers. And the one that was working the best is this one, where you have to find a powdered form of the scent. So for the lavender, I was using lavender talcum powder. For the orange, I was using orange jelly crystals. And you take the powder and then you mix it with this thing called diffusing powder. And then you stamp it with this specific ink on a stamp. And then you melt it with a heat gun and it makes this nice little smelly little texturous thing, right? And it was working great. But how do you get a powdered form of urine scent, right? So I went back online and onto this beautiful website called reddit.com, and I found a very exciting guy who had turned his urine into salt. And the way that he had done that was he urinated into a baking tray, and then he put it in his oven at 300 degrees for 24 hours. And then he crushed it up with a mortar and pestle, and I thought, this is the best shit I've ever seen in my entire life. And as my hand closed on the cupboard in my kitchen, which contains the baking trays, I thought I should stop, actually. And I went back online and actually found the only person in the entire world who will make you custom scratch and sniff stickers. Obviously, there's a lot of scratch and sniff stickers available, but they all have these like pictures of what they are, and they're quite childish cartoons. I wanted it to be unknown. I wanted it to be a secret until you smell it, right? And nowhere will do like such a wide range of smells until eventually I found one person. Her name's Missy. She runs a company called Print Ascent out of Tennessee in America. And on her website, she has a big long list of all the smells that she has made before. And all the ones that I wanted were on there. The popcorn, the lavender, the coconut vanilla blend, the oranges, but obviously no urine scent. But lucky for me, you keep scrolling down and there's a little box where you can write and you can request a custom scent. And so I go, hello, my new friend. May I please request some urine-scented stickers? And in return, I received this email. Hi, Luke. Thanks so much for your inquiry. It's nice to see that my work is reaching as far as Australia. I've set aside samples for popcorn, lavender, coconut, vanilla, and orange. While I definitely appreciate your inquiry about a urine-scented sticker, this is simply not something I am willing to attempt. I do not understand why you or anyone would want this product. However, I do offer the following scents, if they are of interest to you. Manure, rotten egg, fart. What a specific hill on which to die, Missy. What a certain place to draw that line in the sand. So no piss sticker, I'm so sorry to say. I take my Coke Zero bottle full of urine and I put it into a recycling bin out the front of Michael Hing's apartment building. I keep driving all through the night. At about 2 a.m. is when the rain starts to fall and it gets heavier and heavier as the night goes on, and I get to the Splendor site at about 7 a.m. the next morning. It's very wet, it's very muddy. Hing gets there a couple of hours after me and I find him and I give him the ring and I tell him, dude, I'm so happy for you. I'm so excited. I met your partner. She's delightful. This is going to be so great. When are you going to propose? He goes, haven't you heard? They've just cancelled the first day of the festival. I'm not sure if I'm going to propose. I say, I think you should, personally. I think you're a match made in heaven. Second day, it's cancelled again. He tells me again, the vibe's not right. Third day, the music's back on. I think, perfect. What a win for me. What a win for romance. He can propose today. He goes, I'm not sure, man. It's too wet. It's too muddy. My partner, she's not having a great weekend. I'm really sorry, man. It gets to 11 p.m. on the final night of the festival. I go, dude, final night. What more can you ask? This is the perfect situation in which to propose. He tells me again, I'm really sorry, man. I'm not going to do it. We've got another trip coming up in a couple months. I'm just going to wait till then. I'm really sorry, man. I go, whatever. Fuck you. And I go to sleep. And I wake up in my tent at 6 a.m. to this message from an unknown number. Hello, Luka. It's Hum, Michael's partner. Michael just proposed to me, and I, of course, said yes. We are so happy. Thank you for the bizarre but important role that you played in all of this. I have to admit, I became pretty suspicious when I watched Michael's set on Saturday night and he didn't use any audio or video cues. You should know, I have been gossiping about you all weekend. Telling everyone we know that you're a huge sex freak who insisted on looking in my sex drawer. I will now send a few messages to try to undo the damage I've done to your reputation. Much love. Hum. And I see that and have a good laugh about it. And I go to open Instagram to see if they've announced it, if they posted a photo, how did they tell the story, and my thumb sort of hovers there. And I don't open it. I instead go to the Notes app and I write down the last thing I can remember smelling, which is unfortunately a porta potty from the night before. Scroll down past that, scroll past a few other festival-related smells, some food and drink from the few days before that. And then about 5 or 6 behind that is a 2 or 3 sentence version of the story I told you about the engagement ring and the piss in the car, right? And I keep scrolling and I keep scrolling. I see all these smells and I'm so happy to see them. And I'm so happy to hear the notes that they play finally. And I'm so happy to smell them and to be reminded that, you smell the popcorn and I don't give a fuck about being relatable to people. And I smell the lavender and I think how lucky I am to know the height of my ability to love. And I smell the Palmer's Cocoa Butter Lip Balm and I think there's art out there that'll change you and it won't come to you by way of the algorithm. You have to go and find it. And I smell the oranges and I picture that old woman's face going like that. I think it is hard to be good, but the least you can do is try to be nice. And I smell the piss, and I think how much I love piss. And I think, how the fuck did you get to this point in your life? And you can tell from this show, it's kind of a long and weird and sometimes boring story. But I think for the first time ever, if you were to ask me if I'm happy to be here, then my answer would be yes.